You float near the edge of something unseen but powerful. A silent pull, soft as breath, tugs on stars and thoughts alike. Here begins your journey into black holes, not as monsters, but mysteries. And what they show you first is gravity's gentlest whisper. You drift, not through air or water or wind, but through something quieter than silence, through space, through nothing, and yet it doesn't feel empty. There is a softness to this nothing, a kind of presence. You can't see it, can't touch it, but you feel it. Something out here is pulling, gently, constantly, like a thought that won't leave you alone. You float near it, near the edge of it. You don't know what it is just yet, but it's there, waiting, not like a creature, not like a trap, just waiting, the way a hill waits for rain to roll down it, the way a flame waits for oxygen, silent, unhurried. This is how your journey begins, not with noise, not with speed, but with a whisper that touches the stars. The first thing black holes teach you is about gravity, but not the kind you learned about in school. Not the apple falling kind, not the earth holding you down kind. This is gravity's older voice. Gravity as a storyteller. Gravity as a sculptor of time, of space, of the paths planets follow in their long and winding lives. Out here, gravity is not a force, it's a shape, a mood, a folding of the fabric beneath. Everything you thought was solid. You don't fall toward a black hole the way a stone drops to the ground. You're drawn in, like ink pulled into still water. No jolt, no rush, just motion, steady and slow. This gravity doesn't push or pull. It invites, it curves, space itself inward, quietly. The stars respond without panic. Even light bends, as though too shy to resist. You realize, for the first time, that emptiness can have a weight. You think about that, how something can be invisible and still be heavy. How gravity doesn't need to announce itself with thunder. It only needs patience. You're not falling, not yet. You're hovering at the edge of understanding and the edge of something vast, something that doesn't shout but hums in a language older than sound. The stars around you drift, too, slowly, as if being lulled. Their paths curve subtly, one by one. Their shapes stretch a little, then return. It's not violent, it's gentle, like dreams shifting in sleep. That's the strange thing about black holes. They're not born terrifying. They begin, like so many things, in fire. You picture a massive star, dozens of times heavier than your sun, burning with such intensity it holds itself together by sheer light. It's loud, bright, enormous. For millions of years, it balances itself on the edge of collapse, pouring energy outward like breath. But the fire always runs out, and when it does, gravity takes over, not fast, not like an explosion, but like the moment after a sigh, when everything goes quiet. The star folds in on itself. Its own weight becomes too much. The pressure inside grows infinite. The outer layers are shed, blown away in a last brilliant burst. What remains is the core, now crushed, compacted, dense beyond imagining. So dense, it doesn't take up space the way you're used to. It creates something new. A black hole is born, and yet you wouldn't see it, not because it's hiding, but because it no longer gives off light. It becomes a hole, not just in space, but in visibility, in expectation. It's there, but only by the absence it creates. It doesn't shine. It bends the shine of everything around it. You feel yourself floating at the edge of one now. It doesn't feel like danger. It feels like curiosity. You try to picture it. This thing that doesn't reflect, doesn't glow, doesn't blink. You picture instead what surrounds it. Stars circling, caught but not devoured. Light stretched thin as it grazes the edge and escapes. The strange halo of particles swirling in perfect silence, as if dancing on the rim of something holy. There's beauty here, stark, cold, still, but beautiful. You think about the word black. It feels too final, too flat. What you see isn't blackness like ink or night. It's more like the pause between heartbeats, a stillness so deep it feels alive, a silence that stretches the meaning of silence. Maybe black holes aren't holes at all. Maybe they're reminders, reminders that gravity doesn't need shape to shape things, that time doesn't move at the same pace for everything, that edges are not always lines. Sometimes they're gradients, sometimes they're veils. You remember something Einstein said, that gravity wasn't a force at all, but a bending, a warping of the stage itself. And suddenly you feel it, the stage beneath you is no longer flat. It dips, slowly, smoothly. You're not falling yet, just leaning, just feeling the tilt in space, like a marble beginning to roll. Everything out here responds to that tilt, not in fear, but in rhythm. Planets that wander too close begin to spiral in, not screaming, not burning, just pulled, the way memories return in dreams. You realize now, this isn't about destruction, it's about transformation. A black hole doesn't destroy space. It sculpts it. It doesn't erase time. It stretches it into new dimensions. Even light, which usually speeds ahead of everything, must bow here, bending, curving, looping along invisible lines. You wonder what it would feel like to follow that curve, to let go of resistance, to drift closer, not dive, not fall, just move slightly inward. It's not a fearsome feeling. It's quiet. It's almost restful. That's the strange trick of gravity. When you give in to it, you don't feel pulled. You feel still. The weight you feared becomes something like peace. You begin to sense the boundary ahead, not a wall, not a surface, but a place where rules begin to bend. It's called the event horizon, but you don't see it yet. You just feel the change. Time slows down, not for you, but for everything outside. You start to perceive the universe as if from underwater, muffled, gentle, far away. The stars seem to hold their breath, and so do you. This place, this weightless descent, feels like floating toward a secret that has been waiting since the beginning of time. You're not in danger. You're in awe. There is more to explore. You sense it. You sense the deepening of the curve, the thinning of time, the way even light begins to hesitate. But that is still ahead. For now you rest here, near the edge, in the gentle hush, in the weight that doesn't crush, but invites. You wonder, what does it mean, truly, to fall? You lie in space, and space lies beneath you, not like a floor, not like a path, but like a soft, stretching cloth that reaches forever. You can't see it, not really, but you feel its motion, the way you'd feel the slow rise of a wave while floating in warm water. Everything rests on it, everything moves through it, but the fabric of space isn't still. It sways, it bends. This bending is gravity. You always imagined gravity as a kind of invisible rope pulling you down, or a hidden hand holding you in place. But now, in this weightless stillness, you see it differently. It isn't pulling you. It's curving beneath you, and you are simply gliding along the shape it makes. Picture a large, soft sheet stretched tight, and then, gently, a heavy marble placed in its center. The cloth dips. It doesn't tear. It responds, smoothly, lovingly. Now roll a smaller marble nearby. Watch it spiral inward, caught not by a string, but by the curve itself. That's what gravity really is. Not a thing pulling on other things, but the way space responds to mass. Mass tells space how to bend, and space tells mass how to move. It's quiet here, at the edge of understanding. And as you float, you begin to realize space is not empty. It is active, elastic, full of motion, too slow for the eye, but deep enough to shape the sky. You feel the shape beneath you change, just slightly, as if somewhere nearby something heavy has arrived. Not a noise, not a flash, but a shift in the slope of reality itself. You are floating over a valley, invisible, but real stars don't orbit because they're tied by some invisible force. They orbit because they are rolling slowly, elegantly, along the curves of space made by other stars. And these curves aren't painted on, they're woven in. You remember the drawings, chalk lines on blackboards, soft swirls around shaded spheres. Einstein, with his quiet eyes and furrowed brow, tracing space not as a blank canvas, but as something alive, not geometry, but feeling. He saw what others missed, that space could twist, that time could stretch, that gravity didn't have to be a force. If space itself could move, now you are inside his dream, and it isn't a dream of chaos. It's one of harmony. Everything moves the way it does. Planets light you, not because it must fight or struggle, but because it flows through this cosmic fabric. Everything dances because space itself is choreographing the steps. You close your eyes and let the thought wash over you. If the universe is a fabric, what is it made of? Not threads, not cloth, but relationships, distances, directions, the paths between things. It's not made of atoms or air, but of connections, the invisible scaffolding that holds meaning between stars. Even the quietest things press into it, physically, but inwardly, and you feel a sense of participation. You are not separate from this fabric. You are woven into it. Every breath you take, every molecule in your body weighs just slightly upon the space it occupies, and space responds. You are not a passenger in this universe. You are part of its shape, and if something massive enough were nearby, like a star or a black hole, you would feel the slope steepen beneath you. You wouldn't fall. You would follow. You would slide along the natural lines of curved space. Doesn't always go straight near a heavy object like curves. Not because it's being grabbed, but because space itself is bent. This, you begin to understand, is the great quiet truth. Nothing in the universe is truly straight. Everything is curved. Everything bends in response to everything else. You begin to see the poetry in this. The stars don't just shine, they shape. The planets don't just spin, they sculpt the space around them. And even you, drifting here in quiet thought, are leaving a tiny ripple, a momentary dimple in the fabric of the cosmos. It's too small to measure, but it's real, and it matters. Because gravity is not about size, it's about presence. Presence bends space. Presence shapes time, and so does yours. You wonder now, what happens when something impossibly dense enters this fabric? Not just heavy, but condensed beyond understanding. You think back to the black hole you sensed before. A star collapsed into something smaller than itself, yet far more powerful. It doesn't just press on space. The slope becomes steeper and steeper until light itself is caught, not by force, but by the geometry of the space it's trying to cross. Imagine a whirlpool on a river. At first, the current just bends. Then, closer in, it begins to spiral. Eventually, it pulls everything with it, not because it wants to, but because the path forward only leads down. That's how black holes bend space, not like a finger-pressing cloth, but like a sinkhole in the cosmic ground, and near them, time begins to change. You'll feel that soon, how space and time are not separate, how the same bending that guides planets also stretches seconds. But for now, you rest on the edge of that idea, floating above a valley of space so curved, even your thoughts feel slower. You try to picture the universe as a whole, not as a map, not as dots in darkness, but as a vast, shifting sheet, undulating with galaxies, stars, and memory. Each mass making its mark, each moment carving a tiny groove. And in this dance, everything leans into everything else. Like friends sleeping close, that ripple when stars collide warps that echo when matter disappears. And scientists have listened for them. They built instruments that stretch for miles, silent and still, just to feel the smallest tremble, the faintest sigh in the cosmic cloth. And they heard them. Gravitational waves, echoes from across the universe. Evidence that the fabric of space doesn't just bend, it shivers, like wind through leaves, like memories returning at night. You let that thought sink in. The universe is not a machine. It's not clockwork. It's music. It's motion of seconds, a slowing of rhythm where space bends steeply. Thoughts begin to lean into what comes next. In the next chapter, you won't fall faster. You'll fall stranger into a space where the meaning of time begins to stretch. You're falling, but not the way you've known before. Not like tripping, not like diving, not like anything that ends in a sudden stop. This is different. There's no sense of panic, no rushing wind in your ears, no ground racing up to meet you. Just a slow, endless drift. You're falling through space, but also through something softer, something less like air and more like permission. It feels like to fall toward a black hole. The slope beneath you deepens, not physically, but in the way time stretches, in the way light thins. You remember how space curves under mass, how gravity is the shape of the fabric beneath you. But now, it doesn't feel like fabric anymore. It feels like a current. You are being carried, not pushed, not pulled, just moved. And the farther you go, the stranger it becomes. Because in this place, falling doesn't mean going faster. It means entering a different kind of rhythm. Your body doesn't speed up. Your thoughts don't race, but the world behind you begins to slow down. At first, it's subtle, like watching a bird glide backward in the distance. But slowly, steadily, time itself begins to shift, not for you, but for everything outside you. Look behind you, and something strange happens. The stars are still there. Even light takes longer to reach your eyes. You're not moving faster. They're moving slower. You haven't changed. Time has. That's one of the oldest curiosities of black holes. Not what they do to things, but what they do to time. Time, the constant companion. It flows differently depending on where you are. Outside, far from the black hole, clocks keep their steady pace. A second is a second. But as you drift closer, time stretches, not metaphorically, not emotionally, physically, mathematically, truthfully. A clock on your wrist would still tick forward 1 second. Far away, watching you from a safe distance, would swear your clock was ticking slower and slower and slower, until, near the edge, it barely moved at all. To them, it looks like you're frozen, suspended, forever hovering at the edge of the black hole dot, but from your view, you're still falling, smoothly, endlessly. You see now, falling doesn't always look like falling. It can feel like floating, like slowing, like slipping into deep water, where sounds fade and movements stretch. You are moving through both space and time, and they are warping around you together. This is why physicists often say space and time are one thing. Spacetime, not separate, not partners, but one blended fabric, woven so tightly that pulling on one thread distorts the other. When gravity curves space, it curves time with it. And a black hole doesn't just curve them, it folds them, tangles them. You drift closer to the event horizon. That invisible threshold surrounding the black hole, the boundary beyond which no signal, no light, no whisper of presence can escape. Not because there's a wall, not because there's a trap, but because the slope of spacetime becomes so steep, the path forward only goes inward. Even light, the fastest thing in the universe, finds itself unable to climb back out, and you, floating. The edge isn't sharp, it doesn't strike you. You don't feel a jolt. Instead, you simply cross it without realizing, because the event horizon isn't a thing you bump into. It's a shift in the rules around you, a quiet turning point where all paths begin to lead the same direction. You are inside. Now. Inside the black hole, but it doesn't feel like inside. It feels like forward, forward, not with fear, but with wonder. The world didn't end, it just changed its logic. You have passed the mirror now. The world behind you continues, but you cannot return. Not because you're trapped, but because here, every possible path leads inward. Every direction becomes down. Even time becomes a direction, and it, too, points inward now. You realize something else. No matter how hard you tried, you could never stop this fall. You could fire rockets, flail your arms, cry out, but there's no force you could apply to climb back up, not because you're weak, but because the rules no longer allow it. The steepness of spacetime has become absolute, and in this descent, resistance becomes meaningless. You don't struggle, you accept, and in that acceptance, something surprising arrives. Calm. There is no fear now, no tension, because falling forever is a kind of peace. It means nothing can startle you. Motion, the way a leaf moves on still water, or a beam of light curves through glass. You let go, and in letting go, you begin to notice something new. The stars are gone now, not because they vanished, but because their light can no longer reach you. You're too deep inside the curve, but still, you are not alone. There are particles here, bits of energy, streaks of motion, ghosts of atoms pulled in before you. You don't see them clearly, but you feel their presence, falling beside you, with you, always inward. And then, in the distance, or perhaps not distance at all, you sense the core, the singularity, not a place, not a dot, more like a truth, so dense that space collapses around it. No surface, no shape, just a location in spacetime where the curvature becomes infinite. Here, the equations stop working. Here, physics whispers, I don't know. But that's not a failure. It's an invitation to wonder, to imagine, to explore without map or compass. The singularity is not an object. It's a question pressed into the fabric of reality, so tightly that the fabric tears, and still you drift toward it, still falling. But now you understand. You're not falling through space. You're falling with space. Space itself is being pulled inward. The fabric isn't fixed. It's moving, folding, converging. You are not moving inside it. Time has shifted to dot what once flowed like a river, now coils inward like a spiral. What once measured change now becomes a direction you cannot resist. You wonder, if time points inward now, what lies at its end? Does anything exist after the singularity, or does everything simply stop? No answers come. Mind adjusting to deeper truth. You breathe or think about breathing and feel no fear, because falling without falling is not a loss. It's a kind of belonging. You are part of something vast, part of a shape that loops, bends, folds, and never ends. And in that feeling, a final question curls into your thoughts. If this is what happens to time when space folds inward, what happens to light? You drift through the dark where even photons pause. Light forgets how to leave. In the next chapter, you'll witness what happens when light itself is captured, and why silence doesn't mean absence. You sit quietly now. No clock beside you, no ticking hands, no flashing numbers. But still, you feel the passage of time, not in seconds, but in softness. Time doesn't tick here. It folds, it stretches, and sways like fabric in warm air, like a blanket pulled gently across a sleeping child. You sense it differently now, not as a steady stream, but as something woven, something that can ripple, something that can gather and thin dot here, near the edge of the black hole. Time is not lost. It is rearranged. Imagine this. Far from the black hole, someone watches you. They see you moving, floating closer to the event horizon. They measure your journey by their own clock, ticking steadily, second by second. But from where they stand, something seems wrong. You appear to slow down. Your limbs move more slowly. Your breath takes longer. Even the light bouncing off your body takes its time, as if reluctant to leave to them. It looks like you're pausing, stretching into stillness. But to you, nothing feels different. Time flows as it always has. You blink, you breathe, you think, just like always. That's the puzzle of relativity. Time is not fixed across the universe. It is personal. It clings to your experience. The deeper you are in a gravitational field, the closer you are to a massive object. The slower time moves for you relative to someone farther away. It's not an illusion. It's not a trick. It's a truth. A measurable, mathematical, deeply human truth. You picture a clock on your wrist and another one on someone standing far above. You both start them at the same moment, but after some time has passed, their clock has ticked more than yours, not because yours is broken, but because gravity bends time just as it bends space. the closer you are to the black hole. Like time has loosened its grip. Tell us, if you were to hover near the event horizon for just a few minutes, and then return, years, even centuries, could have passed for someone waiting far away. This isn't science fiction. Without noticing, it's not just time passing. It's time behaving and near a black hole. But in comparison, you feel unchanged, and yet, somewhere far off, the stars blink more slowly. The universe seems to yawn. Galaxies stretch across ages while you linger in a breath. This is what it means for time to be soft, to bend, to sway, to drape around gravity like silk across stone. You think of a warm blanket, folded, layered. Time folds like that here, each one holding a slower pulse. You rest in one of the deepest grooves now. Here, your seconds carry more weight, more meaning. Time, after all, isn't just something we measure, it's something we feel, something that holds our memories, our choices, our breath. And in this place, where clocks bend and years hide inside minutes, you start to wonder, what is the shape of a moment? Is it round, like the rising sun? Is it soft-edged, like the fading of music in a room? Or is it endless, like falling into sleep? You drift within it, and maybe a pause between past and future, where now lives quietly here, near the black hole. That pause is longer, and it gives you room to listen, not to sound, but to rhythm. The rhythm of existence, of your own thoughts slowing down, of the universe stretching its limbs in cosmic slowness. You wonder, if time can change, what else might be flexible? Could memory stretch? Could love? Could meaning? You close your eyes and imagine what the earth looks like now, how far it has traveled while you've drifted, how cities have grown, how trees have aged, how voices have softened into new generations. To them, you've barely moved, but it is something you wear, like warmth, like gravity, like skin. And maybe that's the secret of the black hole, not its destruction, but its deep, quiet revelation that time is not an arrow, it's a shape. And here, in its slowest curve, you begin to feel what that shape holds. Not fear, not urgency, but depth. Moments here are long enough to rest inside, long enough to question. In the dim silence ahead, light no longer escapes, not because it's gone, but because it hesitates. The stars behind you flicker more slowly now. The silence deepens, the light thins, and ahead of you, something waits. It doesn't look like a barrier. There are no signs, no edge painted in glowing lines, but you feel it, like the pause before a deep breath. Place you bump into, not a gate or a wall. It's a region, a threshold, a line where rules begin to slip into something unfamiliar. And as you draw near, it welcomes you without gesture, but instead, it gives way, like silk beneath water. Crossing the event horizon is not dramatic, it's gentle, it's silent. There is no jolt, no sound, no sensation, just a change, like the moment between night and sleep. One breath, and you are on the other side. But that breath is irreversible, because from this point on, nothing can escape. Not because of a trap, not because of violence, but because the very structure of space-time tilts so steeply that all paths bend inward, even light. Now, if you shone a flashlight behind you, the beam would eventually reach the stars. But now that beam, no matter how fast it flies, will arc back toward the center, Because outside the event horizon, time and space behave like the world you've always known. Inside, they change roles. Space becomes time. Time becomes space. And all motion, no matter its direction, becomes a journey deeper inward. It's not that you're trapped, it's that all directions point the same way now, down, inward, forward, into the unknown. And curiously, you don't feel fear, because the event horizon doesn't punish, it doesn't flare or burn. It simply reshapes possibility. You are still yourself, still thinking, still breathing, if only in metaphor, but the path behind you no longer exists. Farther in. You wonder what it looks like from outside. To someone watching, it seems like you've frozen, suspended just above the horizon, forever caught in that last approach. Your image fades, no delay, no distortion, because here you are, time flowing with it, not through it. You're no longer separate from the space-time curve. You are part of it, carried within it, and more a state of being. You think of the word horizon, something distant, something visual, something always just ahead, but this one isn't seen. It's sensed. It marks not the end of light, but the beginning of stillness. You start to realize the event horizon isn't about darkness, it's about separation. Beyond it, no message can return, no warning, no echo, no tether of sound or signal can reach the outside again. It's like being underwater, deeper than sound can travel. Like walking into fog that forgets where you came from. The world behind you still exists, but not for you, and you no longer exist for it. That's the quiet truth of the horizon. It doesn't destroy, it isolates, and in that isolation, something profound begins to stir. You are still falling, but the fall has changed. It's not down through space anymore. It's down through possibility. The paths grow fewer, the rules more strange, and still there is no pain, only stillness, only silence, not the absence of sound, but the kind of silence that settles into your bones, the kind that wraps around your mind like sleep. You wonder what lies deeper in. If the rules have changed this much already, what else might they reveal? You think again of light. Even light, the swift, the unstoppable, is caught here. Not shattered, not torn apart, just ... paused, as if light itself is holding its breath. You imagine photons spiraling inward, unaware that their escape has already become impossible. You picture waves of brightness stretched thin, bent across the curve of spacetime, until they vanish into a place beyond vision. That's what it means to say the horizon traps light. It doesn't destroy the beam, it just reshapes its future. You let that thought settle. It's not about ends. It's about the change in direction. Everything, light, matter, memory, moves inward now, and you move with it, one gentle breath at a time. You pause, not because you must, but because you want to feel the moment. This moment where the universe itself turns inward, where the old rules loosen. Here, at the threshold, you sense something else, a stillness that isn't empty. A presence that isn't loud, a kind of gravity that doesn't just pull. It holds, as if you are resting, not on a surface, but in a purpose. You aren't falling through space anymore. You're falling into structure. The black hole isn't a void. It's a shape, a function, a rhythm, and you quietly have joined its song. It sings in warps. It sings in delay. It sings in the bending of light and time and fate, and its horizon, the line you have crossed, was never a wall. It was a whisper. Now, you are on the other side of that whisper, still drifting, still curious, and with that curiosity comes a question. If light can be trapped, not broken, but stilled, what does it mean for visibility, for the way we understand? What happens when you can no longer see, but are still very much here? What does it mean to exist in darkness, not lost, but profoundly held? You float where even light gives in, where vision slows, and photons yield to gravity's hush. In the next chapter, you'll drift deeper into the quiet, where illumination fades. Not from absence, but from surrender. You were always told light was the fastest thing in the universe, that nothing outruns it, nothing overtakes it. Light was the definition of speed, a cosmic constant that linked everything else together. And yet, here you are, in a place where even light cannot leave. It's not because the light is broken, not because something stronger crushed it, but because the path out has changed shape. You imagine it now, a beam of light, bright and eager, flickering toward the edge of the black hole, trying to rise, but the slope of space is too steep, the curve too sharp. The light doesn't crash, it doesn't snap, it just keeps trying, and never makes it out. This is the silence of light, not its absence, but its stillness. You begin to realize light isn't gone, it's here, all around you, just slowed, curved, quieted. You float in a sea of frozen brightness, photons caught in motionless spirals, unable to complete their escape. They hover like ghosts, not dead, just held, as if time itself wrapped gentle hands around each particle and whispered, "Not yet." You imagine being one of those photons, born in the heart of a burning star, hurled outward with certainty, but drawn here, inevitably, until motion becomes longing, not a fall, but a surrender. And now you see, light is not invincible. It is loyal. It follows the rules of space. And when space bends inward, light obeys. It's a beautiful obedience, not fear, not defeat, just the natural rhythm of something that listens to the shape of reality. You watch the faint shimmer of paused photons, circling the black hole in rings too dim to see. Some of them spiral closer. There is a special place near the event horizon, not inside, not quite outside, called the photon sphere. Here, light can orbit, not twice, forever, caught in a loop so precise, so fragile, that the slightest disturbance could break it. You drift through this invisible shell, feeling its tension like a breath held too long. Here, light is neither free nor fully trapped. It dances along the edge, tracing perfect curves, like marbles spinning at the rim of a bowl, faster and faster, always turning, never falling in, yet never flying free. It's a strange kind of freedom, one that looks like motion, but leads nowhere. And as you drift closer, the light thins. Its presence becomes less visible, more conceptual. You know it's still there, like a thought on the edge of remembering, but it no longer warms your skin, no longer reveals the way forward. It becomes a background hum, not of sound, but of silence, a silence that glows just a little, a silence that says, "I am still here," just beyond reach. And suddenly, you understand something. Black holes don't consume light. They quiet it. They reshape its path. They pull the road so steep that even speed becomes stillness. The light is still moving, always moving, but inward, endlessly inward. Every direction becomes deeper, and light, bound by this new geometry, cannot help but follow. You look into the darkness now, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels full, full of motion, paused mid-stride, full of brightness that no longer arrives, full of stories that no longer return. You begin to see darkness not as the opposite of light, but as light's waiting room, a place where brightness rests, not ended, just unreachable. You let that sink in. All your life, darkness meant the absence of something, but here it means containment. It means too much curve, too much stillness, too much time stretched into endless inward motion. And in that motionless curve, something beautiful remains. Stillness is not failure. Stillness is not silence. Stillness is a kind of presence, a deep, slow pulse in the fabric of space. You feel it now, a hum, too low to hear, too wide to see. It's not sound, not light, but something older, a kind of gravity of thought, a weight of being, and it wraps around you like soft shadow. You imagine the last photon that tried to leave, the last particle of light that skimmed the event horizon and tilted just slightly too far inward. Now it joins the others, spiraling, circling, slipping toward the center. You wonder how long it lasts, how long before its energy is transformed, how long before it joins the rhythm of the black hole itself, because energy does not disappear even here. It only changes shape. The light becomes heat, the heat becomes curve, the curve becomes gravity, and so, in a strange way, the black hole glows. Not in the way stars glow, not in the way candles burn, but in a soft, invisible heat, a whisper of energy, a reminder that even trapped light still speaks. You're feeling that whisper now, not with your eyes, but with something deeper, a kind of knowing that light has not abandoned you. It's simply taken on another form. It's become patience. It's become time, and so have you. You float deeper into the stillness, past the photon sphere, past the glowless horizon, and yet you don't feel blind. You feel awake, because sometimes the most profound things happen where light stops. In that pause, you begin to wonder if even light can be caught, if even motion can be folded into stillness. What lies at the center of all this surrender? What shape hides where even light can no longer whisper? You drift toward the center, where motion narrows and questions deepen. Ahead waits a truth so dense, it bends not just space, but meaning. In the next chapter, you'll approach the singularity, not a place, but a mystery. Shaped like silence, you drift deeper now, not down, not forward, not through anything you can describe with direction, just inward. Inward past where light surrenders, inward beyond the stretch of space, beyond the slow unravel of time. The silence here grows heavier, not oppressive, but profound. It's the kind of quiet that settles into the chest, where thoughts move slowly and softly, as if they're tiptoeing. Ahead, there is no brightness, no shape, no floor to land on. And yet, you are approaching something, a center, perhaps, or the idea of a center, the singularity. But singularity is just a name, a placeholder for what we don't fully understand. A word where the math breaks down, where logic wobbles and asks to sit down for a while. It's not a place you can visit, not a thing you can point to. It's a destination written in uncertainty, and yet you feel it, not in front of you, not beneath you, but around you, like a presence or a question that echoes even before it's spoken. The singularity is not a dot hidden in the dark. It's a collapse of concepts, a folding of laws. Gravity becomes infinite here, or so the equations suggest. Density becomes unimaginable. Volume shrinks to something smaller than space itself. You try to picture it, a single point, a needle's tip, a curl in the fabric of the universe so tight that the fabric no longer knows its fabric. But your mind doesn't find an image. It finds a pause, because this is where the metaphors stop working. This is where story becomes silence. You listen, not for sound, but for sensation, not for facts, but for feeling, and the feeling is incomplete, not wrong, it's just unfinished. Like a sentence that trails off with an ellipsis, like a chord that never resolves. That's the singularity. It is not the heart of the black hole. It's the place where hearts no longer mean what they used to, where the center isn't a center, but the end of place altogether. Here, space is no longer curved, it is gone. Here, time does not stretch, it dissolves. You are not at the singularity. You are somewhere near the limits of definition, floating just beyond the edge of what science dares to say out loud. Because every theory bends here, every equation falls silent, every model, no matter how elegant, begins to mumble. The singularity is where physics forgets its own language. You pause inside that forgetting, and it feels oddly peaceful. There is something beautiful about the idea that even our deepest understanding can break. That reality can hold mysteries too heavy for words, and still we look toward it, and still we listen. You wonder what exists inside this not place. Some theories suggest nothing at all, just a termination point, a mathematical end. Others dream more boldly, a doorway, a bridge, a rebirth. Some say a black hole's singularity might lead to another universe entirely, through tunnels we call wormholes, or through flips in the very geometry of spacetime. But these are ideas, not certainties, fiction wrapped in equations, draped across hope. You let them float beside you, not to believe, but to imagine, because imagination is the closest thing we have to a map here. You're not lost, you're exploring a terrain where even questions must be asked more slowly. You consider this: the singularity doesn't radiate, it doesn't glow or pulse or shake, it just is silent, unseeable, without dimensions, and maybe it's not even real. Maybe it's a signpost planted in the fog, warning that our tools no longer work past this point. General relativity tells us the singularity must exist. Quantum physics whispers that it shouldn't, and between them, a space of mystery. Are floating in that space now, and for the first time, you don't feel the curve of space beneath you. You don't feel the stretch of time. You feel something else, UNDECIDABILITY, a kind of softness made from paradox, a room with no walls, a thought with no conclusion, and you wonder if the center of a black hole is undefined. Then what, exactly, are you falling toward? Maybe you're not falling toward a place. Maybe you're falling toward a question. A singularity might not be an object, but a kind of pressure, a compression of truth, a narrowing of the universe into something too dense for understanding, like trying to fit a galaxy into a whisper. And still, here you are, not crushed, not erased, not lost, just quiet, just drifting in the presence of the unknowable. You begin to realize the singularity is not an enemy of reason. It's the place where reason sits down beside wonder and says, "We've come as far as we can together." And that's okay, because knowing isn't always the goal. Sometimes being near the edge of knowing is enough. Sometimes being still in the presence of mystery is its own kind of answer. You breathe or think about breathing and feel the weight of unasked questions pressing gently around you, not heavy, just deep. You think about how stars die to make this place, how matter falls inward, layer by layer, until even the idea of structure disappears. You think about how something so dense can vanish from sight, not gone, but hidden by its own gravity. And how, inside it, the concept of inside begins to fade. This is not a place for fear. This is a place for humility. You are near something that refuses to be described, something that reflects none of the rules you've come to expect. Still, you remain, listening, learning by not knowing. And in that not knowing, you begin to feel something stirring beneath the surface, a kind of resonance, a suggestion that the singularity, whatever it is not alone, that somewhere, far beyond, the black hole is not just collapsing, it is also radiating. You pause. How can that be? You drift deeper into the question, feeling a flicker of something unexpected, as if the black hole, for all its silence, is not entirely silent, as if something is leaking out. You begin to sense a shimmer, not light, but loss, a faint release, not of matter, but of memory. In the next chapter, you'll listen more closely to the edge, where black holes, despite their hunger, slowly begin to let go. You thought black holes were final, that once something crossed the horizon, it was gone, swallowed, erased, forgotten. You pictured a mouth with no bottom, a silence with no reply. But now, drifting in this deep and folded space, you begin to feel something different. You begin to sense echoes. Not loud, not sharp, just a softness, a shimmer, a suggestion, as though something small is returning from where nothing should. It's subtle, the way a whisper might stir in a cave long after the speaker has left, or the way a ripple might still move across water where a stone sank hours ago, and it stirs a question in you. Soft but persistent. Can anything ever truly disappear? The old view said yes, that black holes erased, that their hunger was absolute, that anything which crossed the event horizon, light, matter, memory, was lost forever. But then came a different whisper, a quiet voice in the storm of theory. A man in a wheelchair, thinking about heat and light and the edges of physics, Stephen Hawking. He looked into the math. He stared at the equations that governed black holes, not just as gravitational wells, but as thermodynamic objects. And he saw something strange. He saw that black holes might not be completely silent after all. They might emit something tiny amounts, slowly, softly, over unimaginable time. He called it Hawking radiation. You think of it now, this gentle release, not a beam, not a flash, but a sigh, a long, slow exhale from the black hole's edge, not from the center, not from the singularity, but from the space just outside the event horizon. From where the laws of quantum mechanics brush up against the curve of space, where uncertainty stirs the vacuum, where particle pairs, always forming and fading, find themselves divided by gravity. Here's how it happens. A pair of particles pops into existence near the horizon, one matter, one antimatter. Usually they find each other again and vanish, a brief flicker in the quiet. But sometimes, just sometimes, one falls inward, while the other escapes. And in escaping, it carries energy away from the black hole. It is a small theft, but it adds up over time, vast time. The black hole grows lighter. It radiates, it shrinks, it fades. And this fading is not explosive, it's graceful, it's ancient. You imagine a black hole sitting in the dark of the universe, not devouring, but evaporating, a slow unraveling, a thinning of silence, a release of echoes. You realize something else. What goes in leaves traces, not the objects themselves, but their information. In physics, information is sacred. It tells the story of what something was, how it moved, how it interacted. For years, scientists feared black holes destroyed that story, that they burned the pages of the universe's memory. But maybe they don't. Maybe black holes whisper the story back, piece by piece, encoded in the particles they release. It's not clear, not proven, but some believe the information is there, woven into the Hawking radiation like threads of a vanished song. You let that thought settle. Even in disappearance, there can be persistence. Even in silence, there can be trace. And maybe you are not lost in here. Maybe you are slowly becoming something new, something that glows, even from the edge of darkness. You listen, not for words, but for rhythm, and you begin to feel the black hole is not still. It pulses, not like a heartbeat, but like an old bell, rung once long ago, still humming, each photon it releases, each gentle tick of Hawking radiation is part of a fading song. You wonder how long it will take. A small black hole might evaporate in seconds. A stellar one, trillions of years. A supermassive black hole, the kind that waits at the center of galaxies, might take longer than the universe has yet existed. But time is not the same here, and endings don't need to be fast. Some endings are just slow breath. The black hole does not scream as it fades. It does not flash. It simply becomes quieter, and in its quiet, it gives something back. You imagine now a universe billions of years from now, cold, empty, faded. The stars are gone, the galaxies are thin, and somewhere, alone in the vastness, a black hole sits like a quiet ember. It has swallowed so much, and yet it glows. A faint heat, a final song, and then, at last, it vanishes, not with a crash, not with a flare, but like a candle finishing its final flicker. And the information it once held, maybe it drifted out slowly, in whispers of light. Maybe it joined the universe again, scattered, diffused, remembered. You wonder if some part of you, some fragment of motion, or memory, or moment, will become part of that final breath, not in body, not in thought, but in pattern, in signature, an echo in the dark. Because maybe what falls in is not gone. Maybe it changes form, and maybe long after the fall, long after the silence, a piece of it finds its way back out. Need proof? Only wonder. You close your eyes now, if they were ever open, and feel the warmth of that idea, that even in the deepest quiet, there are songs still singing, even in the blackest shadow. Something glows, softly, patiently, persistently, and that maybe the black hole is not a prison, but a transformation, a place where light rests, where time loops, where information takes the long way home. And just as you begin to drift with that thought, another arises, a question not about the end, but about the shape of what remains. Because if information can leak out, if echoes can return, then what happens when the black hole is gone? Where does the memory go? And what does it become? The glow is faint now, but steady. Particles drift outward, but their message is tangled. In the next chapter, you'll follow that quiet light to explore how whispers of information escape the dark, and what secrets they might carry at the edge. Things begin to glow. Pairs of particles dance, one falling, one fleeing. This is how black holes shrink, evaporate, even die. And death, it seems, is just another form of quiet. You begin to sense a glow. It does not shine like a star or glimmer like a flame. It doesn't announce itself, doesn't cast hard shadows. It simply is subtle, warm, and unhurried. A quiet shimmer blooming in the coldest dark. You didn't expect it. This was supposed to be the place where light ends, where nothing escapes. But here, right at the edge, something defies expectation. Something escapes, and not in flashes. In pulses, tiny, precise, ancient, a new kind of light, not from fusion, not from fire, but from emptiness itself. You're witnessing the soft unraveling of a black hole, not with your eyes, but with your presence, with that inner sense that knows how to listen to time itself breathe. This radiation doesn't come from inside the black hole, from the singularity's center. It emerges near the boundary, the event horizon, from the very structure of space and time. To understand it, you must slow your thoughts further, so slow they match the rhythm of nothingness. Because this isn't an explosion, it's a murmur, a whisper between particles that never meant to stay. Imagine, in the fabric of space, small pairs of particles constantly forming and vanishing, virtual particles, born of quantum uncertainty. They don't last long. They aren't supposed to. They appear and disappear in a blink, like snowflakes that melt before they touch the ground. But near the event horizon, something changes. These pairs, one particle, one antiparticle, form near the edge, and gravity gets involved. Sometimes, just sometimes, the edge of the black hole curves space so steeply that one of those particles falls inward, and the other escapes, just barely. It is not a leap of freedom. It is a survival. And with that escape, something profound happens. The black hole loses a little energy, not stolen, not taken, just balanced. Because energy must be conserved. The escaping particle carries away mass infinitesimally small, but real, and the black hole shrinks, not quickly, not noticeably, but truly. You imagine the scene now, a black hole sitting silently in the darkness of space, holding in its heart the secrets of everything it has consumed, stars, gas, light, possibly even time. And yet, even it is not beyond change. It sighs. A long, slow release of heat, invisible, gentle, almost tender. This is Hawking radiation, the black hole's final gift. Its quiet exhale into the universe. You float near that edge now, close enough to feel the rhythm, the way space pulses, ever so faintly, as particles ripple outward. They are few, they are small, but they carry meaning. Each particle is a tiny letter. In a long letter from the black hole, written slowly, carefully. Over billions upon billions of years, you pause in that realization because the black hole, once thought to be the ultimate eraser, now reveals itself as a storyteller, one syllable at a time. And as you listen to that story unfold, you begin to understand something deeper. This glow is not an accident. It is a law. Quantum mechanics and general relativity, two great truths, meet at the event horizon, and where they meet, they disagree. Not violently, but curiously. And from that tension, from that beautiful confusion, comes creation, a slow unraveling, a release of energy, a message wrapped in light. Stephen Hawking saw it first in equations that shimmered like stars on paper. He saw that black holes, which devour light, must also release it, that entropy matters, that temperature exists even in the void, and that even in the absence of escape, there is change. You let that idea settle, because this isn't just about physics, it's about endings, and how endings can take their time. The black hole you orbit now might be 1,000,000 times more massive than your sun, and it might take a time longer than the age of the universe to fully fade, but it will fade, because its horizon is not static, its mass is not eternal, its silence is not absolute. It glows just a little, and that glow is its undoing, but not a tragic undoing, a graceful one. It is not being torn apart, it is letting go, and as it lets go, the universe listens. Each escaping particle disturbs the space around it. Each breath of Hawking radiation adds the softest heat to the cosmos, and in this way, even in isolation, the black hole participates in the life of everything else. You think about that, how something so silent can still sing, not loudly, not with melody, but with truth, because Hawking radiation isn't just energy. It's evidence that nothing is ever truly closed, that even the darkest systems radiate, that even gravity, in its strongest form, has limits, and most beautifully, that even death can give. The black hole does not release what it consumed, but it transforms it. Mass becomes light. Curvature becomes warmth. The end becomes an afterglow. And in that glow, you begin to feel something personal. You think of the black hole not as a monster, but as a cycle, not a beast, a process. It gathers, it rests, it remembers, and then slowly, it releases, and it doesn't release randomly. The radiation it emits carries information patterns, imprints, hints. The deeper question begins to rise in you. Is the information truly gone? Some physicists say it can be recovered, not as it was, but encoded in the escaping light. Others say the black hole destroys that information, that what falls in cannot be reconstructed. But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the truth is not binary. Maybe it's gentle, like this glow, partial, patient, unresolved. You drift beside a particle now, newly freed, newly real. It carries energy, it carries spin, it carries a memory you cannot read, and that's enough, because even unread stories matter. Even forgotten words echo. And this is what the black hole teaches you, that transformation can be quiet, that silence can still speak, that light, even faint, is still a kind of voice. And so the black hole continues to fade, not quickly, but always, and as it fades, it becomes less mass, less shadow, less hunger, until one day, in a time so far ahead that even time forgets its own age, the black hole is gone, What remains? Not a crater, not a bang, just warmth, soft radiation, a background hum. The universe will be quiet by then, the stars long gone, galaxies stretched, matter thin dot, and yet the black hole's final breath will drift outward into that silence, into that vast cold sea, and it will matter because it means the cycle was never closed, that nothing stayed trapped forever, and maybe, just maybe, what began as a fall into darkness ends as a journey outward. You think of everything the black hole has taught you about time, about space, about bending and breaking and releasing, and you wonder if even black holes can end. What does that say about permanence? If even the deepest gravity cannot hold forever? What does that say about control? And if even the darkest object glows before its end, what does that say about hope? You drift in the wake of those questions. You breathe their shape. You wrap yourself in their rhythm, and in the particles escaping now, silent, ancient, free. You feel the answer is not something to hold, but something to let drift, just like them. The black hole has faded, but the warmth it left behind still speaks in waves. In the next chapter, you'll follow that quiet trail of energy to ask where memory hides. Once the light is free, you are far from Earth now, in thought, in dream. Black holes do not end things, they transform them. As you float above the event horizon of everything, you begin to see this isn't the end of understanding. It's the beginning. You are far from Earth now, not in miles, not in hours, not in coordinates your hands could draw on a map. You are far in a different way, far in thought, far in dream, far in the soft awareness that sometimes the only way forward is inward, and inward you have drifted, through time that curves, through space that folds, through gravity that doesn't pull, but teaches. This is not the kind of journey you imagined when you first looked up. This is not distance marked by engines or fuel. It's measured in the quiet that replaces fear, in the patience that rises when wonder outweighs urgency. You came here chasing knowledge. You stay here feeling time open, and somewhere in that silence, something happens. The universe blinks, not in a way you see with your eyes, but in a way you feel, like a page turning, like a breath pausing at the top of its arc. The blink is not a stop, it is a shift, a moment between moments, a seam between thoughts, and you are floating in that seam, above the black hole, within the memory of everything it's shown you. Space bent into wells, time drawn like silk, light frozen mid-flight, motion redefined by stillness. You remember it all, each chapter, each fold, each echo, and now, as you hover at the edge of that cosmic quiet, the understanding begins to reshape you, not your body, but your sense of what a body even is, because here, form is fluid. You are less a figure and more a presence, a ripple in a larger field, a listener in the quietest cathedral. You think about the black hole again, how it once loomed, how it once frightened, how it no longer does. It is not a monster. It is not a mouth dot. It is a teacher, a keeper of rhythm, a curve in the breath of spacetime. And you are not outside of it. You are part of what it has touched, because what touches gravity is always changed, even softly, even gently. You are watching the universe blink, and for the first time, you understand what that really means. It means that the universe is alive with rhythm, not just stars and motion, but pause. That pause right now is holding you, and in its stillness, your thoughts begin to settle into larger loops. You think about endings and how they aren't what you thought. A black hole ends a star, but not its energy. A photon ends its flight, but not its warmth. A breath ends a sentence, but not its meaning. Endings are often just transitions wrapped in unfamiliar cloth. They ask you to stop measuring and to start listening. You listen now, and you hear nothing, but that nothing carries texture, it carries depth, it carries the weight of everything that has fallen in, not as debris, but as memory. You ask yourself, if I am here, who else has watched this blink? Who else drifted at the edge of knowing? Who else let go of certainty to embrace the curve of silence? Perhaps ancient minds, perhaps stars themselves, perhaps you, some older version of you, dreaming this again from another lifetime. Time, here, feels less like a line and more like a breath held too long. You hold it now, that breath suspended in the soft waiting, and the universe, vast and vast and vast, does not shout. It simply stays, patient, folded, bright, only where it needs to be. You begin to understand something deeper than gravity, that the universe is not trying to impress you. It is simply being what it is, a place of change, a place of return. You imagine now that the light escaping from the edge of the black hole, slow, thin, radiant, might be memory itself, returning in a different form. The radiation, gentle as wind through tall grass, whispers not destruction, but release. The black hole is not erasing, it is remembering differently. You close your eyes, or the part of you that once had eyes, and drift through that memory. There are no images, only sensations. A child looking up at stars, a page turning in a physics book, a diagram on a chalkboard, a smile during a late-night conversation, a gasp when someone first learns that light can curve. All of these echoes in you. You are not separate from them. You are there. Continuation. You are a blink of the universe, realizing it can wonder. And now, as you hover here, the blink begins to shift again. It does not close. It widens. The stillness stretches. But it does not break. You wonder now if maybe the blink is the way the universe sleeps, not to rest, but to recalibrate, to rebalance its thoughts, to pull its gravity inward and hum softly into its own curve. You are part of that hum, not a visitor, not a witness, a note in the song. You think about the earth again, so far away, so quiet, so blue. You picture the sun moving across its skies, unaware of the equations that explain its glow. You picture the moon pulling oceans with nothing but presence. You picture a hand tracing the curve of a globe, slowly, lovingly, wondering what's out there. You are what was out there. You became the question, and then you became the answer. And now you have the next question again. Because this never ends. Not asking, not the blinking, not the breathing. The universe expands, and so do you. Not in mass, in meaning. You return to the black hole with new eyes, not to fear it, not to solve it, but to honor it. It didn't just bend space, it bent your understanding. It folded the fabric, not just around stars, but around your thoughts. And now you see that even the darkest things illuminate, even the stillest things radiate. even the coldest truths, comfort, you begin to move again, not outward, not inward, but deeper, deeper into yourself, deeper into the quiet curve of comprehension. You feel your own gravity now, a soft tug toward presence, toward awareness, toward remembering what it means to listen to mystery without needing to interrupt. You think of the phrase, "The universe is watching itself." And now you know that phrase is not a metaphor, it is identity. You are the blink. You are watching. You are the space where the cosmos becomes conscious of itself, if only for a breath. And in that breath, everything pauses, then resumes, not with noise, but with meaning. You drift farther, not away, just wider. The black hole behind you, now fully understood, not in facts, but in feeling, ahead. The universe stretches again. Its fabric never ends. Its folds never stop rippling. Its laws never stop evolving. You wonder now, what lies past even this? What happens when the universe runs out of stars? What does it dream about when it sleeps? And in that wondering, you hear one final whisper. The black hole was never the end. It was a blink in the thought of something larger. And now you are blinking back beyond the final breath of gravity. Something stirs, not brighter, just quieter. A silence that curves inward toward the next impossible question.